Hello, today we have with us Alex Matthews, who's a second year medical student at the University of Bristol. Hello, Alex.
Hi Amber, how are you doing?
Yes, good, thank you. Um, so, can you just open by telling us a bit about yourself, Alex?
Yeah, sure. So I'm 27. So as with this series, I haven't gone straight to medical school,
Hmm.
straight from secondary school. Done a few things in between. Um, Started off doing chemistry at uni. In
Okay.
fact, trained as a chemistry teacher.
Hmm.
Um, didn't enjoy that so much. I then worked for the ambulance service, taking emergency calls for a
Hmm.
while. While I was there, I thought I'd come back to university and study medicine. And here I am, uh, one of the old medics, along with a good other group of people.
Older, not necessarily old.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so it's been quite an academic journey so far, it sounds like.
Hmm.
Whereabouts did you do your undergraduate chemistry degree and your teaching degree?
Yeah, so I went straight to Warwick University,
Okay.
studied chemistry,
Hmm.
did a degree, did a master's in
Hmm.
chemistry, then started a PhD, but that was
Hmm.
awful. Didn't last very long. Um, didn't matter. I wanted to be a teacher anyway. I'd already decided
Hmm.
that. I came back to Bristol University
Uh-huh.
to do my teacher training a
Okay.
few years ago now.
Hmm.
And then I stayed in Bristol while I worked as a teacher for a year.
Hmm.
And when I stopped teaching, I then worked for the ambulance service for a year. That was also based in North
Hmm.
Bristol.
Okay.
And now I'm back at Bristol University still doing medicine. So Bristol is where I've lived for a few years now since I came back from Warwick University.
Hmm. And was Bristol a conscious choice because of the course at all? Like, had you enjoyed studying here previously? Had you looked into going back to Warwick, perhaps, or?
Yes, that's a really good
Hmm.
question. Why Bristol?
Hmm.
Um, First of all, I think if you're willing to work hard, you probably succeed in whatever medical school you went to. So
Hmm.
there wasn't anything I specifically thought was amazing about Bristol Medical School, though it is very good, and I absolutely
Hmm.
love the course. Just to
Hmm.
give them a shout out. Um, I think that the right medical school is the one that you get into.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
but I grew up in Bristol,
Hmm.
so I know it very well. I'm also living back home with my family while I study, and this helps
Hmm.
massively financially. That
Hmm.
was the biggest part of the decision that I made with where to study medicine. I would have
Hmm.
happily been gone elsewhere to study,
Hmm.
um, and obviously applied and to get into other places as well. But Bristol was my top choice, mainly for financial reasons. But I also
Hmm.
knew it's a lovely city and lovely university to go to anyway. So
Hmm. Yeah.
yeah.
Was it massively different then, like different to your original application, kind of when you went for Warwick before? Were you looking for quite different things in the application?
Yeah, I think it's fair to say the
Yeah.
application's pretty different going from school compared to having,
Yeah.
a couple of,
Hmm.
well, I guess, careers, attempted careers under your belt.
Hmm.
The things you can talk about are vastly different, and you will
Hmm.
have, in fairness, a wealth more experience in a number of ways, having done, a few jobs.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, and the things you look for in a course probably are massively different.
Hmm.
Um, and the things I do during the course are obviously different.
Hmm.
Barring COVID, I don't go out so much these days, whereas
Yeah. Yeah.
social
Yeah.
social life was very
Hmm.
important to me while I was at Warwick.
Hmm.
And yeah, first time round, I was happy to go anywhere. In fact, I preferred to go away, whereas this time round, it's far
Hmm.
more convenient for me to be living at home. So
Hmm.
yeah, a number of different considerations really.
Hmm. And is that of those kind of difference in experiences? Have you found that during the course as well? Uh, so your experience during the course.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I mean, just the biggest difference is
Hmm.
I am actually just working hard all the time on
Yeah.
this course. I
Hmm.
think if you make a decision to go back to university,
Yeah.
especially for something like medicine,
Hmm.
that's born from a place where you've made a big decision and commitment, and you've got to follow it
Hmm.
up with hard work. In my first degree, I basically did not a lot for a couple of years, and then worked reasonably hard for
Hmm.
the other years, and
Hmm.
did reasonably well. Um, but that was kind of doing the minimum to get by and enjoying myself, social life,
Hmm.
doing a number of other things. Whereas this time the focus really is just on working hard. So
Yeah.
quite different.
Yeah. Was the teaching qualification, do you feel like a stepping stone, or was that just entirely different in itself as well?
As in a stepping stone towards doing this, or
Yeah, I suppose as well in terms of the applying yourself, the university experience. So undergrad is a lot more about going out, different experiences. Do you feel like you then worked harder in your
I
PGCE and then
see.
again now, or did it prepare?
Yeah,
And also, did it prepare you at all?
yeah. So
Mm-hmm.
good question. The PGC was quite different to how I'd
Mm-hmm.
approached my undergraduate and
Mm-hmm.
masters. It's more similar to medicine in that it's a professional qualification, and actually you are just
Mm-hmm.
on placement and working all
Yeah.
the time. It's not that similar to undergrad.
Mm-hmm.
There's not a whole lot of time for going out
Mm-hmm.
non-stop. So more similar to medicine in that sense.
Mm-hmm.
So you, I think it would be fair to say that the amount of work and the work effort you had to put in for that is similar to medicine and prepared me
Mm-hmm.
quite well
Yeah. Okay.
for this. So that was quite handy. Of course, I did plan to be a teacher the rest of my life. So at that
Mm-hmm.
stage, so that didn't quite work out. But actually, the way it has turned out has been quite helpful.
Mm-hmm. So I suppose this leads on to what made the change to medicine. If you went into
Mm,
teaching, looking at it as your lifelong career,
yeah,
what brought about the change?
yeah. So really fair question again.
Mm-hmm.
So I went into teaching. I was really excited to start.
Mm-hmm.
Thought it was going to be great. Thought I'd be there forever.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Unfortunately, whilst I actually like working with kids and I like working with the staff, I like the school I
Mm-hmm.
worked at. So all those
Mm-hmm.
things were good. I feel like you spend over half of your hours just doing pointless paperwork
Mm-hmm.
and other admin and various things. And that's fairly soul destroying, actually.
Mm-hmm.
It's quite sad the way it is. So I made the decision to quit.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't have anything in mind at that stage. That was the first time in my life I really had no plan of what I was going to do next. It's quite
Mm-hmm.
scary, actually. Um, so I had a look around for jobs and thought, you know what, something in healthcare. I think that would suit me. I'm going to try
Mm-hmm.
something there. So applied to the ambulance service, take emergency calls, got offered the
Mm-hmm.
job fairly quickly. So I started straight after I finished teaching. And while I was taking emergency calls, working for the ambulance service,
Mm-hmm.
working with a lovely bunch of people,
Mm-hmm.
it's very different to anything else. Shift work,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
can be quite intense emotional work. I thought, yeah, healthcare's for me.
Mm-hmm.
This is very interesting, actually. Hard work, but
Mm-hmm.
rewarding. And I thought, well, where do I see myself going in healthcare? I think I have the background and work ethic to aim as high as possible.
Mm-hmm.
And that meant I came to the conclusion that I thought, well, actually, if I have the opportunity, I'm going to try and go back and study medicine and train
Mm-hmm.
as a doctor. I think that would be the route for me to go down.
Mm-hmm.
And so far, so good.
Yeah. Yeah. So it was quite a considered decision then. It wasn't, I just try this as well. I
Yeah.
spent quite a lot of time researching and looking into it before applying.
Yeah, definitely. And it is a big decision because
Mm-hmm.
medicine, is 5 years, possibly intercalate to make it 6. Some
Mm-hmm.
graduate courses are, of course, only 4 years, but 4 years is still a very long time.
Mm-hmm.
So it is a big decision, and you do need to
Mm-hmm.
think about it a lot. And I gave a lot of careers a lot of thought while I was taking emergency calls. I was really
Mm-hmm.
doing that job whilst thinking where else I could move. I seriously
Mm-hmm.
consider moving elsewhere in the ambulance service or
Yeah.
even completely different careers I could go into.
Mm-hmm.
So it wasn't spontaneous. It was a decision over time, and the more of it, more emergency calls I took, the more I thought
Mm-hmm.
about healthcare, the more I thought, yeah, this could be for me.
Mm-hmm.
I think this is the one. So yeah.
Nice. Do you have any other experience in healthcare at all? Did you do any other work experience or have any other jobs?
So as far as healthcare goes, that was really the first time I'd worked in healthcare. But something I'd wanted to do for a while was do some volunteering. So I
Hmm.
volunteer for St John Ambulance. I've done that
Nice.
for a few years now,
Hmm.
about the same time since I joined the ambulance service.
Hmm.
And that's obviously working with members of the public. It's healthcare
Hmm.
related as well, albeit you probably see different patients no
Hmm.
matter where you are, I
Hmm.
suppose. So I do that for healthcare. I shadowed a number of GPs and
Okay.
any other doctors
Hmm.
and nurses that were happy for me to go and watch
Yeah.
them, see what they
Hmm.
do. So that was great. Really enjoyed all of that.
Hmm.
Obviously, seeing what it's like to work as a healthcare professional on a daily basis
Hmm.
is really, really important.
Yeah.
And if you see it and think, yeah, I could do that, I think it would overall be interesting. I could see there are hard parts, but also very good parts to it. If you
Hmm.
see that and think, yeah, I could see myself doing that,
Hmm.
it's probably a good decision to make. So yeah, a number of things in healthcare I've tried before, starting
Yeah.
medicine, I think.
Were you able to do the same with teaching, like before you started, or perhaps had you used your experience of teaching not being what you thought it would be that really kind of pushed you to research medicine before starting?
That's a really interesting question.
Hmm.
The answer is you kind of have to have some experience, work experience, to apply and get onto a teacher training course. So I
Hmm.
had done quite a few weeks where I'd been in schools,
Hmm.
seen loads of teachers, talked to kids,
Hmm.
see what it's like. So I didn't feel underprepared
Hmm.
in the sense of actual teaching. It
Hmm.
was as I expected. What you don't see on work experience,
Hmm.
and something I have been a bit more careful with medicine,
Hmm.
is what goes on behind the scenes. So paperwork,
Hmm.
admin,
Yeah.
that kind of thing. And that's what got me in teaching. It's not teaching
Hmm.
itself. It's kind of half, 2/3 of your time spent on doing what appears pointless.
Hmm.
So while I was watching doctors and nurses and on the course now, whenever I talk to them, I
Hmm.
always ask, what is it you spend your time doing? How is your time allocated?
Hmm.
What jobs do you find frustrating? Don't just ask them what they enjoy.
Yeah.
What are the downsides? I think that's really important.
Hmm.
And based on what I've heard and what I've seen on the course so far,
Hmm.
um, on balance, I still really enjoy what I'm doing. And there are loads of options I think would be great in medicine,
Hmm.
whereas in teaching, not so much for me.
Hmm. Yeah, I think I was talking to my Inga about, you want to get experience, you go on open days, and they always get out the exciting things. They have the fake
Yes.
arms where you draw blood, and
Yeah.
I get it,
Yeah.
I understand why, but I suppose, yeah, thinking about it, it does make it hard to get a real day-to-day understanding. And even when you go on placement, people want to show you the fun stuff, don't they? They want to show you the exciting things, and I
Hmm.
think it can kind of potentially misrepresent, not purposely, but it can give you a false impression of what your actual day to day will be like,
Yeah.
because no one wants to have you spend a day watching them do paperwork. But often, that can be the reality of the job. Medicine definitely has a lot of paperwork,
Mm.
so I suppose, yeah, it's a difficult balance, seeing the exciting side, but also the realities.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's just a sensible thing to point out, actually asking about, what are the
Hmm.
negatives? You're
Hmm.
right, places always want to sell themselves. And even when you shadow
Hmm.
doctors, they want to show what they enjoy, which is
Hmm.
great. Of course, you want to see
Yeah.
those things. But if you want a reality check, what is it actually like? You've got to do a bit of digging.
Yeah.
I think you've got to be
Hmm.
a bit sensible about it. And just in terms of paperwork, you're absolutely right. In medicine, there is loads of paperwork.
Hmm.
And I know it's going to be frustrating. I'll find it frustrating the same as the next person. But looking at the paperwork you have to do, it feels to me like there is a purpose for it. It is for the patient. And actually, if
Hmm.
I write notes that the next doctor uses or should be using,
Yeah.
that's very helpful. Whereas in
Hmm.
teaching, I felt like a lot of the admin paperwork is completely pointless and doesn't
Hmm.
impact anything or anybody, and is
Hmm.
just a waste of time. That's quite an important distinction to make for
Hmm.
me. But you are absolutely right. There is still lots of paperwork in medicine.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. Got to get that handwriting down, the illegible doctor's handwriting. Yeah.
Yeah, I've already been practicing. You can barely
Yeah.
read it already. It's great.
Hmm. Perfect. Perfect. Um, So we've talked about quite a lot of different things and experiences you have. Did you feel you were able to kind of show them off in the application process? And how did you do that?
Yeah, very much so. I actually felt quite comfortable writing an application saying, I've done
Mm-hmm.
these things, these are the skills I've gained, this is
Mm-hmm.
what I think I'd bring to medicine. And when it came to the interviews at medical schools,
Mm-hmm.
I felt quite confident because I could just
Mm-hmm.
sit there and it felt like I had really good answers when they asked, how do you deal with pressure? Have you got experiences of
Mm-hmm.
that? How do you organize time? What examples can you give of that? And of course,
Mm-hmm.
having worked for the ambulance service, you could say, well,
Yeah.
I've advised people in, circumstances where
Mm-hmm.
someone could die. This is working under pressure. Of course, it's a very good example of that. How do I organize my time? Well, I've been a teacher.
Mm-hmm.
I've had to organize having 1,000 jobs at once, having to prioritize work.
Mm-hmm.
So actually having these other experiences has been very, very helpful
Mm-hmm.
for the application process, both on paper and at interview.
Mm-hmm.
And I think if you are coming from a kind of graduate, or not necessarily graduate, just a mature
Mm-hmm.
background, you've done other things, no matter what you've done, you will have gained skills. And I
Mm-hmm.
think you should reflect on what you've done. There will
Mm-hmm.
be something useful you've done that you can use in the
Yeah.
application for sure.
Mm-hmm. And did you apply to graduate courses as well as undergrad?
So I applied to one graduate course that was in
Mm-hmm.
Southampton. I'm not salty, but they were the only place that didn't offer me a
Mm-hmm.
position.
Yeah.
I didn't want to go there anyway. I just want to
No.
clarify. It was too good for
Yeah.
them. The other three places I applied for were here at Bristol, who offered me a
Yeah.
place, um, Leicester, who offered me a
Mm-hmm.
place, and Belfast had offered me an
Mm.
interview, but I'd already been offered a place before I
Mm-hmm.
went to interview, so I withdrew.
Mm-hmm.
As I already had a place I was happy to take. No point
Mm-hmm.
doing more interviews and
Yeah.
things. So, yeah, one graduate place,
Mm-hmm.
3 normal undergraduate places.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
Yeah. I was just thinking in terms of, did you feel there was a big difference between the application processes of both? Because obviously graduate entry, they are expecting you to have done some other things, whereas
Hmm.
undergrad entry, I don't know, perhaps there was a little bit more of a limit in how much you could showcase your previous skills, as it's not necessarily designed in the same way, to expect the interviewees to have as kind of varied backgrounds, I suppose.
That's really interesting, a really interesting thing to explore, because actually in
Mm.
the undergraduate interviews, I think whilst I didn't go to Belfast, Bristol and Leicester were both multiple mini interviews, so
Yeah.
7 or 8 stations you move around that each
Mm-hmm.
test one specific attribute or skill.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt actually I was very much able to kind of show off or just
Yeah.
show the things that I'd learnt and skills that I'd gained.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't feel like it was tailored to people going from school. I actually
Mm-hmm.
thought it was very fair in the sense that it doesn't matter
Yeah.
where you've come from or what stage.
Mm-hmm.
You could just go in and say, well, this is my experience. Um, this is my experience of doing this skill or
Mm-hmm.
having that attribute. So no, I didn't really feel like that. The single graduate place I went for, it's difficult to say because I think Southampton were unusual in the sense that they still don't do multiple mini interview. They
Mm-hmm.
just did a group interview, which I really didn't enjoy, and I think it might
Yeah.
have showed.
I also
Um,
interviewed at Southampton and
oh,
did
really?
not enjoy it either, or got a place. So I think, yeah, it was the group interview
Okay.
was uncomfortable. I think, yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
I guess it's a side note, but I'm a bit skeptical of how effective it is at selecting good candidates, regardless of whether I got in or you
Yeah,
got in. I think it's a bit strange.
yeah.
I think multiple mini interview is possibly the fairest way of selecting, because even if you absolutely dive at 1 or 2 stations, you can easily still get a good enough score in other areas
Hmm.
to succeed, which I think is very fair.
Yeah, I think I understand, I suppose, what they're trying to evaluate. You know, medicine is so collaborative. You know, at Bristol, we spend
Mm.
a lot of time in small group setting teaching. And I think if you don't have the communication skills to, I suppose, contribute well to a team, then that's important to know. I think the setting in which they're evaluating that is quite artificial. And I
Yeah,
think if you aren't able to play the game of
yeah,
when, and so yeah, um,
yeah.
I get the
I think you're
premise.
spot
Yeah.
on. Yeah. Thank you for that response, Amber.
Yeah.
That was
Yeah.
a really good point to make. I'd just like to add to that.
Mhm.
Um, no, that is what it feels like in the interview
Mhm.
there, uh, and I think you're spot on. Communication is, of course, very important
Mhm.
um, in medicine, anywhere in healthcare. Really,
Mhm.
you are going to be working in multidisciplinary teams,
Yeah.
communicating with different people all the time. So it's very important. But again, I'm not sure how effectively that very artificial environment manages to capture people's communication skills. But
Yeah.
you know,
But we're not salty.
I
We're not. We're
not at all. Neither of us.
no. No.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So we've gone through interviews. Now you're on the course. Are you then finding you're still utilizing these skills? 'Cause I've from a few people heard that you're worried about potentially taking a step back. You've gained a huge range of skills from teaching to academic to in your work experience. Do you still feel you're using them and building on them, especially I suppose being on an undergrad course? Do you feel like there's still opportunities?
I can see that it would feel like a step back,
Mm-hmm.
starting a degree again. But actually, for me personally, I think there's ample opportunity to use what I've
Yeah.
learned. Okay, I'm now on the other side of the desk again. I'm not the one teaching,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm fine with that. I can use the things I learned from being a teacher to learn more effectively.
Mm-hmm.
And there are a number of ways that has been very, very helpful for me.
Mm-hmm.
Um, as well as working for the ambulance service, we talked about communication skills just now.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of medicine is, of course, consulting with patients, gathering
Mm-hmm.
information, putting them at ease. This is directly or very similar to taking emergency calls, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Of course, it might be a different environment, it might be more relaxed
Mm-hmm.
if you're consulting with a patient in a GP surgery,
Yeah.
for example. But the skills are the same: how you talk
Mm-hmm.
to people, how you gather information, how you put them at ease, and actually how you prioritize their clinical need.
Mm-hmm.
So, from both teaching and working for the ambulance service, very, very helpful stuff that I feel like I've been able to use on the course from the start.
Mm-hmm.
So, whilst it is a long journey, 5 more years at
Mm-hmm.
university that hadn't been planned,
Mm-hmm.
would have been surprised if I'd known I was going to go back to uni a few years ago. I
Mm-hmm.
feel like I've been able to use what I've learned. So
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't feel like a step back to me. I also know
Mm-hmm.
it's leading towards a specific
Yeah.
outcome as well. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
quite happy to just, keep working towards that.
Yeah, and outside the actual curriculum, have you found that there's been kind of extracurricular, I suppose, activities or avenues that you've been able to get involved in on top of just the course?
Yeah, definitely.
Mm-hmm.
It's a number of things I've done to do with medicine and not to do with medicine.
Mm-hmm.
So my biggest hobby outside of medicine is tennis. I played
Yeah.
tennis for Warwick University
Mm-hmm.
the whole time I was there, and actually that was the hub of my social life as well. Absolutely
Mm-hmm.
loved the tennis club. I've carried on playing tennis at Bristol University.
Mm-hmm.
I did it during teacher training. I'm doing it while studying medicine now.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, at this moment in time, we've been in lockdown for about a year, so haven't been able to play tennis for the uni.
Mm-hmm.
But before that, in first year, I was playing matches for the uni,
Mm-hmm.
and when lockdown finishes, we'll still be training and playing more matches. So I've
Mm-hmm.
absolutely been able to do that, which is
Mm-hmm.
great. Um, Other opportunities that are kind of more medicine
Mm-hmm.
related, whilst not actually directly on the course, but to do with
Mm-hmm.
healthcare. I do a small amount of teaching first years through what's called the
Nice.
PASS scheme, which is
Mm-hmm.
great. I've carried on taking emergency calls for the ambulance service
Mm-hmm.
on a bank contract, so
Mm-hmm.
supply work.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I've also recently applied to work as a nursing assistant for the
Nice.
BRI in
Yeah.
Bristol. Haven't started yet, but that's another great opportunity that is
Mm-hmm.
not directly on the course, but has
Mm-hmm.
certainly been born out of doing the course.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, there are a number of things you can do at the same time.
Hmm.
And there is time if you're happy to organize
Yeah,
organize your time. There is plenty of time to do what you enjoy
I was just about to
outside of the
say,
course.
sounds a lot.
Yeah.
So it does sound a lot.
Yeah.
And you do find the balance is manageable.
Yeah. Again, I think that's born of a place where I've worked as a teacher where surprisingly
Hmm.
there's not a whole lot of free time. You've got
Yeah.
a mountain of tasks to do all the
Hmm.
time. You've got to
Hmm.
just get on with it. Coming back to be a student, yes, medicine is hard, but I'll tell
Hmm.
you what, doing any degree doesn't hold a candle to having a full-time job.
Yeah.
So actually, whilst I do work hard on the course, I feel like I have lots of free time to do other things as well.
Hmm.
So yeah, if you're willing to organise, there's plenty of time really
Hmm.
to work hard and play hard, I suppose.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah, not so much at the moment with the playing hard, but when
yeah,
lockdown's over, get back to the tennis court.
yeah. That's
Yeah,
the hope. Yeah,
because I
bad
think
times.
especially in medicine, teaching is huge, isn't it? So I think there are lots of opportunities, quite a lot of peer-to-peer teaching. Um,
Mm,
there does seem opportunities out there.
yeah,
Um,
there's loads of teaching that goes on in medicine, and it
mhm,
sounds like virtually every or the majority of doctors do some kind of teaching
mhm.
alongside their clinical practice, which is great. I mean, not only does having a PGCE and being a trained teacher actually count for points on applications in the
Yeah.
future, which is an unintended bonus of having
Mhm.
trained as a teacher, the
Yeah.
skills are also very relevant and helpful all the time. So,
Mhm.
and will be for the rest of my career. So that's great.
Yeah, with the changes that they've made, that's probably going to apply to the academic foundation program, isn't it? And is that less so now for the standard foundation program?
So teacher training itself never counted for points for the normal foundation
Okay,
program.
okay.
And I don't think there are formal points as such for the academic foundation program, but it would just be something I'd be able to
Yeah,
talk
of
about. And I
course.
think it
Yeah.
would contribute to that.
Mhm.
And even beyond the foundation program, just having a
Mhm.
teaching qualification for every job interview I ever go for
Mhm.
is a big plus. You know,
Mhm.
someone will be able to go, oh, tick, this person's formally qualified. They've done
Mhm.
a year of training. They must have some skills and maybe know
Yeah.
something about teaching.
Yeah.
So you know, not just foundation program, but beyond. I
Mhm.
hope it'll be very helpful.
Mhm. And your, I suppose, more academic background, have you found any avenues alongside medicine to kind of explore that
Mm,
environment? Are you interested at all about? I know the PhD you didn't quite
yeah,
fall in love with. Can't understand
yeah,
why. Um, but yeah, are you kind of exploring research at all?
yeah, definitely.
Mhm.
At the moment, I'm very strongly considering, you know, do I want to go into an academic career? The fact that I didn't enjoy the first PhD, I think is less a reflection on my ability, more reflection on I
Mhm.
chose very poorly
Mhm.
something that I really should have known I wouldn't have enjoyed.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, my academic background, I said I'd done a master's in
Mhm.
chemistry. And actually, from that work, I do have a published paper to my name, which is
Nice.
great. That
Yeah.
stands me in good stead as
Mhm.
well for applications. What I'm doing at the moment with that, in my own time, I've arranged a project with a neuropathologist in
Nice.
my local department,
Mhm.
and I go in there kind of every week or every other week at the moment, just trying to organise a project,
Mhm.
um, a research project. And
Mhm.
we've now, you know, applied for summer project funding,
Nice.
which hopefully we'll get, and I'll be able to go in for several weeks over the summer to do a research project.
Mhm.
So in that way, just trying to work out, do I want to work in research?
Mhm.
It's a very interesting experience applying for my own funding.
Yeah.
It takes a lot of work filling in your own funding applications, have to do
Mhm.
ethical proposals. Um, you know, that's a big chunk of the job, and I've
Mhm.
got to go. I do love research. Do I love it enough to spend a lot of my time
Mhm.
doing funding proposals? Um, So yeah, for the remainder of medicine, I do plan on, you know, trying out different areas, going to see what different doctors do, but also kind of what
Mhm.
academic options are there in both research and teaching.
Mhm. And how did you come across that opportunity? Um,
Yeah, good question. So as part of most medical courses, you'll have
Mhm,
kind of student choice,
mhm,
student selected components.
mhm,
We had one at the start of second year, which was 3 weeks. Now,
mhm,
the neuropathologist I'm now doing a project with, and hopefully will carry on over the summer,
mhm,
she offered a project for the student choice in second year.
mhm,
Unfortunately, it was randomly allocated, and I didn't
mhm,
get that project. But what I
mhm,
thought was, well, I'm interested. I'm going to email anyway and say, look, can I come and see what you do?
mhm.
And hopefully build from there.
Yeah.
And she said, yeah, absolutely, come in and see
Mhm,
what I do. So I went in for 2 days.
mhm,
Found it absolutely fascinating. And at the
mhm,
end of 2 days, I was going to ask, do you offer summer projects? Could I come in and do more? But in
mhm,
fact, she turned around and said, we offer summer projects here. And I thought, oh, great. That's a great
yeah.
result. Yeah, I'd love to do that. So really, it was born from just being inquisitive. I
Mhm,
didn't quite get what I wanted because I didn't get her project.
mhm,
I got another project which was very good anyway,
mhm,
but I thought I'd just email anyway and just
mhm.
ask. The worst that would have happened would have been like, sorry, I don't
Mhm.
have time.
Yeah.
So my advice would be, if there's an area you think you're interested in, just Google the department at a hospital and
Mhm,
find someone who works there and email them
mhm,
saying, look, I'm a medical student, or I've got this background.
mhm,
I think I'd be interested in doing what you do in the future. Could I come and see what you
mhm,
do? And once you're there, you're in, talk to
mhm,
them. And most doctors are generally just very nice people that
mhm,
are happy to have you there and also love teaching.
mhm,
Um, and if you ask, you may well get. So
mhm.
yeah,
Yeah.
really came from not much at all. Just ask.
Yeah. Yeah. I do think that's such good advice. I think, yeah, just put yourself out there, send a few
Hmm.
emails off, show some interest. I think is important.
Hmm.
Um, show some genuine interest in that area or that subject.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
like you said, these people are dedicating their careers to these fields. They're excited about them. They're enthusiastic about them.
Hmm.
Usually willing to share that. And I think don't be disheartened by no. People are also really busy and it might not be the right
Yeah.
time. But yeah, absolutely. I've had quite a few opportunities come from just sending some emails out. So yeah, and I think also just, I suppose the course is a good base to then have the contacts and the um, be in the right situation to access those opportunities.
Yeah. Definitely. It can be tricky if you're not directly medical to just email, go,
Mm-hmm.
can I come and visit? They'd be like, well, who who are you?
Yeah.
We can't let
Yeah.
anyone in. But
Mm-hmm.
you're absolutely right to say, having got on the course,
Mm-hmm.
I email going, dear such and such, I'm a second year medical student. I've really enjoyed anatomy,
Mm-hmm.
histology, and neurosciences so far.
Mm-hmm.
I see you're a neuropathologist and I see you've done work in this area. Can I come and see what you do?
Mm-hmm.
Uh, you're quite likely to get yes as an answer,
Mm-hmm.
because there's no real barrier to you doing so. Having
Mm-hmm.
said that, you're right. They might be too busy and say, sorry, I don't have time.
Mm-hmm.
But I have had that once where they just go, I don't have time, but here's my colleague who,
Yeah.
sometimes has people to visit them. Maybe you should try them.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, even if you get a no first time, email other people.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I think that's how I've ended up on a lot of projects, is just showing
Mm.
some interest. So um, fantastic. To kind of think about more in the future. So you said you really love the idea of working with kids. We've talked about now like histopathology. Do you see any of those kind of going forward in the future? Any particular speciality that stands out to you?
Yeah, we get asked this a lot as medical
Yeah,
students, don't we? It's
yeah.
it's quite it's quite early, but I think
Mm-hmm,
we all have ideas. The
mm-hmm,
important thing is just to stay open. We probably change our minds about 1,000 times before we
yeah.
actually get there, of course.
Mm-hmm,
At the moment, I think I'd like to do something quite practical.
mm-hmm,
And from that point of view, perhaps something surgical or
mm-hmm,
something in pathology.
mm-hmm,
Like I said, I'm doing the project in neuropathology at the moment. I absolutely love that.
mm-hmm,
So, and that comes with, microscopic analysis of tissues, which I
mm-hmm,
find fascinating. Um, knowledge,
mm-hmm.
in-depth knowledge of anatomy, which is also something I find absolutely fascinating.
Yeah.
um, so something pathology related, like histopathology,
Yeah.
neuropathology, I think would really suit me,
Mhm.
and I'd be excited to do. But also surgical, again, very anatomical. You're doing something that actually is tangible that might
Mhm.
help someone.
Mhm.
Um, so I will certainly be exploring a few surgical options for
Mhm.
careers. That's really where I'm thinking at the moment. Of course, when we get on rotations, I might just find an area where I go, "Oh, this is
Yeah.
brilliant. This is
Mhm.
what I want to do." But
Mhm.
at the moment, that's what I'm thinking.
Yeah. And do you think you would have been kind of attracted to the same careers if you'd started this a while ago, or do you think there's been other influences that make you lean towards different routes?
That's a really interesting question.
Mhm.
The answer is I think I would have considered very different specialties if I'd
Mhm.
gone straight from school. I would also add, as a side point, if I'd have gone straight from school into medicine, I don't think I would have succeeded on this course. I think I
Okay.
already would have failed and dropped out.
Mhm.
I do not think I was mature enough or would have worked hard enough to
Mhm.
succeed. But that's just a side point.
Mhm.
At this point, I think it's just because I'm actually considering kind of critically what I want to do. How do I see my career
Mhm.
um, planning out? And that's different. If I was going straight from school, I probably wouldn't already be thinking about what I want to do.
Mhm.
I also think uh, when I think about what I want to do, it's a bit more pragmatic. If I
Mhm.
was a bit younger, I have a feeling for me, I'd have been considering things that would have been cool or,
Yeah.
really well respected a bit
Yeah.
more
Yeah. Yeah.
than I am now. I think you might stereotype pathologists. Oh, I don't, but I feel like they might get stereotyped a bit as people who, work underground and don't see the light very often. And I might have been put off that if
Mhm.
I was a bit younger, but actually this
Yeah.
time round, instead of being put off by something like that, I've gone and seen it and I go, wow, I absolutely love this.
Mhm.
So I think I'm just a bit more pragmatic in thinking about what I want to do,
Mhm.
um, and thinking about what I'm good at,
Yeah.
and
Okay.
how I see my career rather than
Mhm.
just kind of thinking about it a bit less, I suppose, if I was a bit
Mhm.
younger.
Yeah. Author of the new Wheaters coming up in your future, maybe.
Yeah, life goal, absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, yeah. And I suppose if you were to start again, or for people that are starting soon, any particular kind of advice since you've started the course that you think, actually this has played out, a lot more than I thought it would, or I've utilized this skill or experience more than I would have expected?
Yeah, that's a really good question. What would my advice be? I think the best bit of advice is think about how you're going to spend your time,
Hmm.
organize,
Hmm.
and actually stick to it with discipline,
Hmm.
and think about how you're going to learn, plan your learning.
Yeah.
I think that'll be my biggest bit of advice. Realistically,
Hmm.
a lot of medicine is learning facts. You have to just put in the big slog, sit there at a desk,
Hmm.
and learn facts.
Hmm.
Write yourself flashcards, ask questions of yourself
Hmm.
on the subject material. I
Hmm.
think that would be my biggest bit of advice. Plan your time, plan how you're going to learn, think about
Hmm.
it, reflect, and keep developing ways of learning.
Yeah.
Um, it's certainly, having been a teacher and having done previous degrees,
Hmm.
I feel like I have a pretty good idea of how I want to spend my time learning,
Hmm.
and good strategies to use. My advice would
Hmm.
be for others to think about how you're going to go about learning. There's a
Hmm.
lot to learn.
Yeah. Yeah. I found I had coming from when I started, my first degree, I learned really differently, and there just wasn't the same. Sounds
Mm,
sound too old, but electronic note taking was just
yeah,
not very big. There wasn't software for it that was very
yeah.
helpful. So I found I've definitely had to change. I thought I came into it thinking, oh yeah, I know how to do this, and actually, I've changed pretty much everything
Yeah.
how I've gone about learning, because we know so much more about it, I suppose. And I suppose you've had the experience of being on a teacher training course. But yeah, I've definitely changed mine a lot. So
Yeah, that's interesting.
definitely good to think about.
I'm in the same boat as you. In my first degree, no one in lectures had
Mm-mm.
laptops or iPads or
Mm-mm.
anything. Everyone just had notepads,
Mm-mm.
and there wasn't an online learning environment. You couldn't
Mm-mm.
rewatch the lecture.
Mm-mm.
It was a real struggle if you missed the lecture, which
Mm-hmm.
I did quite a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Compared to this time around, where everyone is sat there typing away on laptops and
Mm-hmm.
everything's available online, which are both, great for
Mm-hmm.
people. That helps people learn. That's fab. But you're right, it's completely different. So I do a blend of kind of learning stuff
Mm-hmm.
online and recording my learning kind of in
Mm-hmm.
my own way online, but also sticking to handwritten notes and
Yeah.
handwritten flashcards, which I quite like.
Mm-hmm.
Um, we all spend enough time staring at screens. I try and keep,
Yeah.
physically writing stuff as much as I can. But that's
Mm-hmm.
personal preference. I don't think it's absolutely necessary. It's how you want to do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. I thought for a little while, it maybe even slowed me down having previous experience because I was quite set in some of those ways, whereas maybe perhaps someone fresher
Yeah,
to the that
yeah,
style of learning might have been quicker to take up better methods. So I think you have to definitely be open to and I was talking about before, just the breadth of the knowledge as well. It's not the same as a lot of other learning.
yeah.
Um,
That absolutely links in with, I
mhm.
guess, what one of the things I said a moment ago. We've got to not be stubborn. What we've learnt
Mhm.
before will be helpful in some way,
Yeah.
but actually you've just got to keep developing it, keep the good
Mhm.
things, but also realize that what you've done before might not work this time.
Mhm.
Medicine is very much different to chemistry in the
Mhm.
volume of facts
Mhm.
you have to learn, and that demands a different way of learning for sure.
Mhm.
As it sounds like you found as well, quite similar.
Slowly. Yeah.
It's
Slowly getting there.
okay. Yeah, exactly. So keep the good parts, keep
Mhm.
keep refining it really. Um, yeah,
Yeah, perfect. Well, thank you very much for talking to me today. I think people will be really interested to hear your background and how that's being applied to medicine and going forward. I look forward to reading your histopathology book in the future.
you're very welcome. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no worries. Bye bye.